Hello and welcome to this episode where I'll be interviewing Natalie Regis about her research paper titled How to Improve the Perceived Health, Comfort and Wellbeing of Primary Teachers, a quantitative self-reported survey during the COVID-19 pandemic in Scotland. Her research paper is about how to improve indoor air quality in Scottish primary school classrooms and the impact of indoor air quality on teachers' health and well-being, but also the effects of it on children's learning in classrooms. It's a really interesting research paper, and I am very excited to share the research with you all in this episode. I am again in Edinburgh, but I would love to also interview other researchers from across the UK or internationally. Currently, all my connections are currently in Edinburgh, so that is why the last two episodes have been interviewing researchers based here. However, I would really love to include any international researchers or researchers within the UK as well. So if you are interested in being included in this YouTube channel, please let me know. Or if you have any other further connections of people, please let me know as well. Hi Natalie, welcome to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk with us. We're very excited to discuss your research paper. Just for those of our audience who do not know you, I'll just read through your bio to introduce you. Natalie is an Associate Fellow of the Higher Education Academy and has been involved in supervising and teaching undergrad and postgraduate modules at Edinburgh Napier University, including building services engineering and strategic management. Natalie's background is in building physics and sustainable building design. She has a Master's of Research from the Institute for Applied Science in Lyon, France, and an INSA in Civil Engineering and Building Physics, and a Master's of Science in Built Environment from Edinburgh Napier University. Natalie's research areas are building performance, pollutants, sensors, and user experience. She has a PhD on the impact of raising awareness in behaviour change and ventilation in schools. Her research paper, which we're going to discuss today, is titled How to Improve the Perceived Health, Comfort and Wellbeing of Primary School Teachers, a quantitative self-reported survey during the COVID-19 pandemic in Scotland. What motivated you and your team to carry out this study in Scottish primary schools?
So there really are three main reasons that motivated this research. The first one is because teachers in Scotland have some of the highest absence rates among professions in the UK. So we know teaching is demanding and is stressful, but what's often overlooked is how much the physical environment contributes to fatigue, headaches and respiratory problems. And if we can improve the classroom environment, then we may support teachers' health and reduce the absence. The second reason, and there is a very strong evidence that indoor environment affects children's concentration and learning. So better air quality means people are more alert, calmer, and able to focus for longer, which also makes teaching easier and more enjoyable. And then the third reason is because the COVID pandemic made it very clear that ventilation matters for infection control. Classrooms are shared spaces, and improving ventilation helped reduce the spread of airborne viruses, not just COVID, but colds and flus as well. So this research really sits at the intersection of teacher well-being, pupil learning, and public health, all within the reality of Scottish school buildings.
Why do we need to be concerned about indoor air quality?
Well, we spend around 90% of our time indoors, and in school that means that teachers and pupils share the same air for hours at a time. So when ventilation is poor, carbon dioxide builds up. So carbon dioxide, it's a CO2. CO2 itself is not toxic at classroom levels, but it's a very good indicator. We say proxy, but indicator that stale air is building up along with other pollutants and potentially viruses. So high CO2 levels are linked to headaches, tiredness, and reduced concentration. Over time, that affects how we feel, how we work, and how well people learn. Indoor air quality isn't about comfort alone, it's also about health, performance, and resilience, especially in busy classrooms.
From your research and experience, what effect does poor air quality have on children's concentration, learning, and health?
So research has been constantly showing that when air quality is poor, children find it harder to concentrate, they become more restless, and their cognitive performance drops. So in practical terms, that can look like pupils losing focus more quickly, struggling with tasks that require attention, and feeling tired earlier in the day. From a health perspective, poor ventilation is associated with increased respiratory symptoms and more frequent infections. That means more absences for pupils and teachers alike. The encouraging part is that ventilation is one of the simplest levers we can pull to improve both learning and well-being.
Could you explain your research methods and interventions?
So yes, this study took place in two naturally ventilated Victorian primary schools in Edinburgh and ran over 8 months, covering both winter and summer conditions. We used a mixed method approach, so we continuously monitored indoor CO2, indoor temperature, and indoor humidity in the 20 classrooms. We also surveyed the teachers and conducted weekly observation of how classrooms were actually ventilated. And the key interventions were a short teacher awareness webinar explaining indoor air quality and simple ventilation strategies, and real-time visual CO2 monitors in classrooms using easy-to-understand color coding. One school had monitoring only, and the other had both monitoring and the visual feedback. This allowed us to understand what really helps teachers in day-to-day practice.
From your findings, what would you say are the most important take-home messages for primary school teachers when it comes to ventilation and classroom air quality?
So I would say that the most important message is that teachers already play a crucial role in ventilation, often without realizing it. When teachers understand why ventilation matters and they have a clear and simple feedback, classroom air quality can improve even in winter. Another key finding was the one-size-fits-all advice doesn't work, so ventilation needs to be adapted to the classroom, the weather, and the activity which is happening in the classroom. And finally, ventilation should support teaching, not adding pressure. So tools need to be simple, intuitive, and respectful of teachers' workload.
Thank you, Natalie. That is very insightful. Based on your research, what are the realistic and practical steps that Scottish primary teacher or school could take to improve classroom air quality?
So the good news is that many effective actions are low cost and low effort. So simple steps could include ventilation little and often, rather than fully opening windows all day. Even just a few minutes can make a big difference. Then opening windows during breaks or when people leave the room. Using cross-ventilation where possible, even briefly, it's very effective. And keeping internal doors open when appropriate. The key is making ventilation a routine, not an extra task.
How do you balance ventilation, comfort, and heating during Scottish winters?
So this is one of the biggest concerns for the teachers, and rightly so. So the balance is about smart ventilation, not maximum ventilation. So short targeted airing, sometimes called purge ventilation, can significantly reduce CO2 without making the room cold. So teachers in the study had sash and case windows in their classrooms, and they found that opening the bottom pane of the window when CO2 levels were too high while leaving the upper pane slightly open all day was very effective without compromising indoor temperature. So comfort matters. If a strategy makes teaching harder, it won't last. The aim is healthy air without sacrificing warmth.
With a tight budget, what matters most in a monitoring device?
So from this research, ease of understanding is the most important factor. A device that clearly tells you when to act, for example, through traffic light colors, is more useful than a very precise device that's hard to interpret. So if teachers can't quickly understand the information, it won't be used. Measuring CO2 alongside temperature is usually sufficient for everyday classroom decisions.
What training or resources are available to help teachers understand your research paper and indoor quality in their own time?
So as part of this work, we developed a short, accessible training materials designed specifically for teachers, including the Air We Share webinar, which is available on my website. These resources explain indoor air quality in plain language and focus on practical classroom strategies rather than technical theory. My hope is that the indoor air quality becomes part of teacher training and professional learning, rather than something teachers are expected to work out alone on their own time.
How do you believe your research could have an impact in primary schools across Scotland?
So this research shows that big improvements don't always require big budgets. By combining awareness, simple feedback, and realistic expectations, schools across Scotland, including older buildings, can quickly improve air quality. So older buildings, difficult to treat, difficult to ventilate. At a larger scale, this work can inform local authority guidance, training programs, and future school design, putting health and well-being at the centre.
What final message would you like to emphasise to primary school teachers in Scotland?
So my final message is that improving indoor air quality requires a cultural shift. In some countries, ventilation is part of everyday life, like washing hands or opening curtains. In Scotland, we are just beginning that journey. Teachers are not expected to fix buildings, but being informed, supported, and listened to, they can be powerful agents of change. Clean air supports health, learning, and teaching, and it's something, well, we all deserve.
Natalie, thank you so much for speaking with us today. It's been a great experience and I hope our audience enjoys our discussion. If you would like to learn more about this research or Natalie's work in general, I have shared the link to her website in the description below. Here you can also access her free webinar and other great resources. Thank you so much for watching and please leave any questions for Natalie in the comments.